Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for our webinar today, Coronavirus, Customized Updates and Training for Your Team, Clients, and Prospects. Want to thank you for joining us on such short notice. It seems like that's the way it goes these days. With everything that's changing, the changes happen fast. And as Medcom tries to stay on top of things, we also try to bring new ways to help our clients and brokers and partners. I am joined today by Michael Bracken, the president of Medcom Benefit Solutions, and Michelle Barkey, our senior legal counsel. I want to welcome both of them to this webinar. I want to let all of the attendees know that we are recording this webinar. It will be sent out with the information after the webinar concludes. At the end of this webinar, we will also host a brief Q&A session for anyone who is on. If you have any questions, Michael and Michelle will be here to answer those questions, and then this recording will get sent out afterwards. So without further ado, I will go ahead and turn this over to Michael and Michelle.
Thank you, Casey, and welcome everybody. If you're new to the Medcom presentation, we really appreciate you joining us today. If you've been here before, welcome back. It's really a pleasure to visit with you again. Before I begin, I have a confession to make. Can everybody be ready? Because I'm about to share some really heavy stuff with you. And what my confession is that every single service that Medcom Benefit Solutions provides today resulted from somebody like yourself who's in the audience coming to us and saying, could you do this, or what about that, or this relates to that, could you add a new service, could you expand your services? Every single thing we do is because of bright people like you came to us and said, this will really help complement what we're doing as consultants. The same is true for what we want to talk about today. As a starting point, as we all know, over the last couple of months, with the Families First Coronavirus Response Act on March 18th, there's just been a ton of noise out there. All of us, from the different carriers to competitors to associates, everyone has many, many opinions about what's going on. The federal government, as they always do, seems to not be coordinated in terms of their efforts. And a couple weeks back, we had a big thing that changed COBRA in many respects. And then right after that, we had something regarding flexible spending accounts. Within the stimulus package, some that they elected to liberalize student loan repayment. There's just been a lot of different moving parts. And the question is, as it relates to your clients and your prospects and your internal professionals, wouldn't it be nice to have one uniform voice to help give you a summary of all the really important and relevant things that have changed? And so that's what we want to talk about, because we believe we have the tools to make that happen for you, your clients, your prospects, as well as your internal team of professionals. Just looking at a quick timeline, as we can see, it seems like it's been forever, doesn't it? But on March 18th, we had the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. Shortly thereafter, on March 27th, we had the CARES Act. April 3rd brought us the applications for the Paycheck Protection Program. Gosh, it's so hard to believe that's only 2 months ago. Then on 28th, we had notice regarding extension for COBRA timelines. And most recently, on May 12th, we had the tax relief and increased flexibility for FSAs and dependent care assistance. So one after another over the last several months, we've had a number of changes that impact on regulations and your clients and our clients and your prospects. And how do you bring all this together for all these constituents that you serve every day? So we came up with the idea, mostly because people like you came to us and said, what about this? With the idea of what if we were able to provide and encapsulate all the most relevant information for you and us together to co-broadcast a presentation with your clients, prospects, and internal team. And it just starts from the whole womb of this whole thing, which is, how do we get out the most relevant, important information to our clients to give them some confidence and comfort that there's something beneath all the noise. So some of the real important ingredients here have to do with the fact that, again, you're getting a comprehensive uniform guidance from Medcom, a trusted source with some great professionals on our team, experts, attorneys, people with clinical backgrounds, to provide your clients, prospects, internal team with the same voice, with the same information that's been vetted, that is trusted, and is up to speed and up to date. Second really important ingredient here is the fact that, as we typically do with all of our facilitated webinars, it's fully interactive. So we're looking to partner with you to find the most convenient way to broadcast out to your internal team, your clients, your prospects, where you get full promotion of your organization, but it's really interactive and it's facilitated so that everybody who has a question within the time frame of the presentation can ask that question, get more confidence in the fact that you're bringing together a first-class solution. You're going to demonstrate to your clients that you really care about them. We would like to think our clients love us on every single day, but we all know, just based on our own lives, how complex, how confusing, how challenging the last several months have been. And so what would it mean to your client or prospect if you could bring to bear the professionalism, the education, the relevance in one sitting? And finally, we can promise you that if this makes any sense, that those broker consulting partners of Medcom who have taken us up on this offer are knocking it out of the park with attendance. Our average attendance is 87 individuals. Now, I've been to a lot of broker seminars over the years, and I dare say there really have been very few where 87 people showed up. And when you think about the time and effort in setting up promotions and renting rooms and bringing in speakers, all the different moving parts, in most cases, you're not going to get 87 people. But with a couple weeks time partnering with Medcom, that's our average. So we can't guarantee that, but if everybody rolls up their sleeves and works together, there's no question in our mind that we can get a lot of your clients and prospects to show up to hear about, again, a summary of what's the most important takeaway on COVID-19. So you got high-level experts. Michelle Barkey, my associate, who will speak in a minute, is not only our senior legal counsel, she's also a registered nurse and a clinician. She brings to bear really an incredible wealth of experience and expertise to help answer pretty much any question your clients or prospects will have. We anticipate that any kind of presentation will be fully co-branded. So you're going to have the opportunity to present yourselves, again, extend your goodwill and your care for your clients and prospects. And we're okay if Medcom's down at the bottom where they can barely see it. We're here to complement your organization, to make sure your clients understand how much you really do care. And finally, they're going to walk away from the conversation with a lot more information, with a lot of confidence in the fact that they really have a better handle on all these moving parts, all these different regulatory changes. And so their takeaway is they're now a lot more comfortable going forward in managing their employee benefit operation of their organization. It's now my pleasure to turn the conversation over to Michelle Barkey, and she's going to get in a little more detail about the level and depth of the presentations and conversations that we're talking about. Michelle?
Thank you, Michael. Just to bring this into perspective with all these law changes, it's all occurred over the last 2 months. Think about it. We had 5 years to prepare for the Affordable Care Act, and we have had more changes, more paper since the coronavirus that we did the whole time that we were dealing with the ACA. The providence is going to be coming from what the regulatory agencies have said and what they haven't said, because there's a few unanswered questions still out there. You imagine all these laws and all these rules are being changed, and the Department of Labor and the IRS have to then promulgate some rules and some guidance, and they're behind in doing that in some of these areas. But we also want to talk about how do you explain the challenges or the lack of guidance to your clients and what we can rely on if we don't have any guidance. Now let's talk about some of these laws that came out. As Michael gave you the timeline, the first one was the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. And what did that give us? It gave us paid sick leave and expanded family medical leave in relationship to the coronavirus. And if we do it right, and this is for employers with 500, less than 500 employees, we get some tax credits. But not everybody goes off work in relationship to the COVID virus. And we have to make sure that we've got our ducks in a row in order to get that tax credit. So it has to be evaluated carefully on each case-by-case basis. But we do have paid leave and expanded family medical leave, which is also paid. And this is the first time on federal level that we've had any kind of leave being paid for. The next after that, we got the CARES Act. And the CARES Act was a major piece of legislation, and it brought us a lot of different things. It brought us a Paycheck Protection Program, which allowed small employers of under 500 to get some assistance during the pandemic in order to keep their employees retained. And then for those that fell out of the Paycheck Protection Program, because they were over 500, there is the employee retention credit, which is for the larger groups. We can talk a little bit about that too during these presentations. So it doesn't matter if you're under 500 or over 500, there's something in the CARES Act for everyone. Because of the seriousness of the coronavirus, the government also wanted to make sure that people were being treated or being diagnosed appropriately if they had any of the signs or symptoms. So they said, hey, if you go to the emergency room, you go to an urgent care center, and you've got symptoms up to and including the test for diagnoses, we'll be covered at 100%. Carriers, you have to cover this at 100%. And then we had to make some changes to those high deductible health plans and the HSAs in order to accommodate this change. And then, as you know, we've got the over-the-counter drugs and menstrual products now also being allowed as eligible medical expenses under an FSA or an HRA or HSA. So we've got some changes that were fairly major and substantial under the CARES Act. And it also brought us some of the student loan relief that Michael also mentioned. Then we got the outbreak period. And you know, the outbreak period is starting on March the 1st, and it goes 60 days to the end of the pandemic, after the end of the pandemic, after the end of the national emergency. And we don't know when that is because the national emergency is still ongoing. And it's kind of a period that's carved out. So COBRA notices and COBRA elections don't have to take place on time. Got more time for that, as well as for paying premiums. It also affects claims and run-out periods on FSA. So there was a lot of news with the outbreak period. Unfortunately, with the outbreak period, it's one of those areas we haven't gotten a whole lot of guidance. How do we notify employees of this, right? How do we send notices out? How do we administrate it? How do we pen claims? There's a lot of unanswered questions with the outbreak period, but we do have some guidance that we can provide on that. And then, thankfully, the government came out with Notice 2020-29. We were thrilled with this because we were getting a lot of questions about the use it or lose it applicability of FSAs, and people, especially with mid-year FSAs, losing money because the doctor's offices and the dentist's offices were closed. So it did give us some further options when it comes to FSAs and the DCAP programs that were very welcome. It also brought us special enrollment rights, where the employer can open up special enrollment anytime during the 2020 year. Always recommend you talk to your carriers because they are not necessarily in agreement with this. But it did bring us a lot of changes that we need to discuss, and we need to also look at some strategies as to how to best implement. And then notice 33 was just a minor little notice, but it does have a bit of an impact where the amount of a carryover for this year is now going to be 550, and it's going to be indexed this year at 20% of the maximum allowable for elections of an FSA. So there's been many, many, many changes in the last 2 months. It's been a whirlwind. We still need some guidance in some areas like the earthquake period, but we're moving along pretty nicely, and a lot of these changes were welcome. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Michael. Oh, before I do that, just before I do that, Michael, I just want to remind them, let's not forget the ACA. The ACA rules still attach. So if you've had somebody go from full-time to part-time, we still need to look at that. Terminations versus furloughs and how that's recorded on your lovely 1095-Cs if you're an applicable large employer, and how to avoid those ACA penalties, which may come about if employers don't administrate the ACA within the guidelines of the ACA, because nothing has changed there. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Michelle. So just as a summary, and as you can tell from the level of detail Michelle just went through, really just as a summary, there's obviously a lot of meat on the bone that your clients need to know more about and your prospects. So what we're proposing to you as employee benefit consultant is that we'd like to make available a customizable COVID-19 regulatory update and training for your clients and prospects. We'll co-brand it to whatever level you would prefer in terms of how we could set it up and deliver it 100% from Medcom. We can deliver it 100% from your place of business and have Michelle come in and give presentation authority. But it's really a clear way to demonstrate to your clients how professional you are and how important it is for them to be apprised of recent developments. It'll be set up to meet all of your needs. If there's a segment of your clientele you'd like to approach as opposed to all of them, we can work with you on that as well. The entire production is available for a modest fee of $495. It's up for 2 full hours of presentation, questions and answers, and final discussion. There's no limit on the number of attendees from your end that might be able to participate and learn at the forum. And everything will be fully recorded, so you have it available for use down the road. So just want to mention again that our average attendance has been 87. So if you do the math and take $495 to getting a first-class expert to come in, and you borrow her for 2 hours, get 87 people to show up on a per unit basis, that's really a great deal. All right, just as another overview of everything that Medcom does, we have a full service Affordable Care Act employer reporting and penalty appeal support division. Adding some new technology there as we speak to make it more user-friendly and intuitive. We have a full plate as it relates to consumer-driven health plans, things like flexible spending accounts, health reimbursement arrangements, health savings accounts, dependent care assistance, commuter plans, COBRA premium billing administration. We have a separate discipline in the whole area of HIPAA privacy and security, both from a documentation and a technology and assessment perspective. And finally, we have a very deep bench of health and welfare compliance and actuarial services delivered by a number of JDs and other professionals. All right, well, thank you so much for your time and effort. We welcome any questions that you have, and we're not going to close down today until we have a chance to take a look if you've submitted any questions. But if we can be of help to you in providing a COVID-19 update for your clients and prospects, as we've mentioned, it's turnkey. We basically need a minimum of about 2 weeks lead time to get everything organized with you. But we've got a really seasoned team of marketing people as well to support our collective efforts in making it happen for your clients and prospects, and would just offer up our sales at medcombenefits.com or the 800 number. We can be of help in setting it up and getting started. So thank you again for joining us today. Thank you, Michelle, for bringing a lot more definition and resource to the conversation. and I'm going to ask Casey if we have any questions.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Michelle. We do have just a few questions that have come in for the presentation. The first question is, if someone were to reach out to Medcom about setting this up, who would set it up? Is this Medcom's responsibility? Is this the broker partner's responsibility? Who sets up the actual webinar?
Okay, that is an excellent question. I'm going to give part of that, but I think Casey, maybe you could weigh in too. But basically, it's your decision. In other words, if your preference would be that you control the whole presentation, and we're just given the authorization at the appropriate time during the presentation to come in and speak, which would be typically Michelle Barkey, we're happy to set up that way. Or another approach would be that you use all of our technology and resources. We clearly would need to get a distribution list from you so we can invite everybody. But we can work either where we control everything, where you control everything, or meet somewhere in the middle. And Casey, you might want to add something to that.
Absolutely. Just as Michael said, that's something that you guys can predict on your own. We at Medcom are more than happy to set that up and send out a registration link to you, a list of your clients or employees, however you prefer. Or if you have your own platform that you use, we are happy to submit the handouts and the presentation in advance so that you can set that up on your own, under your own, and then just hand over a presenter login or email for us. So it goes either way that you want. The next question is, can we do 2 one-hour sessions within the 2 hours and the $4.95 charge?
Yes, absolutely.
So basically saying that this is fully customizable to use your 2 hours with the information that best fits your needs. Another question, is Medcom able to also provide information and handouts that go with the presentation?
Would the question be, are we going to provide the presentation in advance? Is that really the question?
I think it's corresponding materials as well.
And the answer to that is we do have some corresponding materials that would be co-branded for you. We have a spreadsheet that goes through the outbreak period and who has to comply with it, and some samples, as well as samples of the Notice 2020-29 and what that involves. So we do have some cheat sheet, so to speak, that can be co-branded that we would provide, as well as some other question and answers that we would also provide along with the presentation and presentation handouts at the time of the presentation.
Thank you. The last question that I have on the list so far, I will encourage you, if you have those questions, please feel free to submit them now. We will take the time to answer them. The last question on the list at the moment is, what kind of turnaround are we talking about from someone reaching out who wants this to be presented? What's the turnaround time typically?
We would generally recommend 2 weeks, but for given situations, we'll do everything we can to make it more aggressive than that. But a lot of it, of course, will depend on who's going to be driving the train on the technology, whether it's going to be your firm or Medcom. But we would prefer a 2-week lead time to get everything well organized and enable you to organize your distribution list to invitees. But if something came up and you needed us to move quicker than 2 weeks, we'll make that happen.
Absolutely. We don't have any further questions today, so I will go ahead and say again that this presentation has been recorded along with the question and answer afterwards, and I will send that out as soon as possible. Also, if you have questions or if you are interested in setting this up, the information is on the screen. You can reach out to the Medcom sales team at sales@medcombenefits.com. You can also reach out to us via phone or to your own particular sales contact, reach out to any of us. You can email myself or Michelle, and if you attend our weekly desktop discussions, you have our information. Just want to say thank you again to everyone who attended. Thank you to Michael and Michelle for presenting the information. We definitely appreciate your time and expertise.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a wonderful day.